What if I told you that a guard who's been in the G League most of the season turned into Steve Nash to save the Suns season? A PHNX 30 for 30. Don't Colin it a comeback. We are back, at least for the evening. It is the PHNX Sun Show, brought to you by our friends at Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use that promo code PHNX365 when you sign up to find out why, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And there was absolutely nothing ordinary about that Suns game tonight. The Phoenix Suns have the sixth largest comeback in franchise history, and we get to talk about it soon. It's been a little while since they got a win, and since I've been on the post-game show, so you got to have some sexy sacks.
The first win that was worthy of an enthusiastic, sexy sex.
It was. They showed some heart. They showed some hustle. They showed some passion, and they came back on a Clippers team that, for most of the season, not recently, have been pretty good.
Yeah, this very much felt like the Clippers had a conversation either during the timeout or during halftime. Ty Lue's probably like, "Hey, y'all know this team is gonna fold on you at some point. Just keep chopping away at the tree." The tree fell. They came into a timeout after Bud had to blow like 8 in the third quarter, and he said, "See, I told you so." And then they mailed it in, and then the Suns came back with one last big joker in the back pocket, and it came in the form of Kevin Durant, and his kind of in addition twos with Colin Gillespie.
I thought you were going to call him his little sidekick, his Robin, his Batman.
Sidekick, whatever you want to call it. He tried to steal the show in multiple moments, and the most unassuming. This is very much a Phoenix Suns win this season.
I mean, it was the biggest comeback of the year, 23 points. We're looking at in the third quarter with 1:52 left. They're down 95-72. By the 2-minute and 58-second mark in the fourth quarter, they're up 110-108, and they don't relinquish the lead from that point. Now, they tried to give it away. Devin Booker missed 2 free throws.
Yes, they did.
It got interesting there at the end. Zubac almost gets that tip in to tie it, but they didn't. And the Suns win. And look, I had them on life support in the pregame, and I thought if this went the way that it looked like it was, that was it. Like, I literally had the title that the Clippers slammed the coffin shut on the Phoenix Suns. But there is a pulse, and this team actually, if they can bottle what they had in that fourth quarter, not just Kevin Durant playing otherworldly, but that excitement, that passion, that playing defense and hustling on both ends of the court, you might have a chance. Might's doing a lot of work, but you might have a chance.
It has to be repeated, and it can't take for such Herculean efforts to just get a dub, to do this every single game.
Oh yeah, it should not take a 23-point comeback.
Exactly.
And an otherworldly fourth quarter from Colin Gillespie, who's been collecting mothballs on your bench or playing at Mullet Arena.
Exactly. But for this, it's a tough night for the Kevin Durant's not a leader crowd, because yet another moment where he's helping the spark, but he's also lighting the fuse for someone else that's not of the veteran level of the Suns. Had moments with Oso, had moments with Ryan Dunn. has now had moments with Bol Bol over the last couple of weeks. And then tonight, the latest in that compilation of players, Colin Gillespie.
I don't think it's been leadership. I think it's been a collective lack of killer instinct, the lack of, like we talked about in pregame, like they had talked about over the last few days, when they get hit in the mouth, they fold. Tonight they got an uppercut, and they were dazed there for a good 2 quarters. That second and third quarter, they looked like that same team that we've seen all year. But they found a spark, and that spark was Kevin Durant to start, and then it kind of led to a fire with the entire team feeding off that energy and playing well in that fourth. And that's what I think is the biggest problem, is that they don't have that life in most situations after they get hit in the mouth and they go down. And tonight they were the polar opposite of that. They fought back and they showed passion and they showed energy. And we saw those defensive stats they showed on the broadcast. Since February, they're basically dead last in every defensive category you could have. But guess what? When you put forth some effort, some energy, you wind up actually having some success. And that's what came in the fourth quarter with it.
Yeah, and I struggle to want to give Bud credit based off of what I saw. Not pushing any narratives at all for anybody that doesn't know me, but this feels like this was more so from the player's will than it was Bud making some magical
100%.
adjustment. I will give him credit for putting someone different in and shifting things to start the second half. But that's the extent of it for me.
Well, I mean, he didn't have a choice. Bradley Beal got hurt, so he had to go to a different lineup.
But he could have left. He could have left Bol in.
I guess he could.
I know that difference with him versus Royce didn't pay that much of a difference over the course of the game. But again, just liking to see, it's clear that what was working in the first half dissipated going into the second quarter, and he adjusted from there. So give him credit for that. But this one was on the players, particularly KD and CG.
100%. And I'm not giving him credit for putting in Colin Gillespie, because that felt like it was waving the white flag, and it just happened to catch a spark, right? And part of it was because the hands forced with Brad out there. So I think you're 100% right. This is on the players. They found it within themselves, and they did something that we have seen very few times this season, and it was refreshing because, quite frankly, I think Suns fans had hit the point of apathy, had given up on this team. I still don't know that they're going to fully be out of that point, but this gave that reminder of, oh yeah, this is why we watch basketball. This is why we like the Phoenix Suns. This is why we find joy from turning on a basketball game. Oh, and we didn't fully embarrass ourselves on national television. Like, those things, you need to prove it over multiple games, obviously. But I think, just like we thought the Suns were on life support, you may have seen that blip on the screen where fans may have come back, because even I think it was late in the second quarter, or early in the third, they started booing the team, right? And slowly that crowd that was in the building got back into it. And I think you kind of piqued the interest. Even myself, that had given up a lot of hope on it, felt a little something tonight. And that's a start.
Yep. I mean, there's no secret to it. They literally just gave the crowd something to cheer about, for one. And then they were able, on the defensive end, to compile multiple efforts. Nick Richards and Mason Plumlee, I know Mason gets a majority of that for his efforts in the comeback, but Nick Richards was decent all game in the things that was controllable by his part. And I feel like this is some of the best defense we've seen from those two in tandem with one another since Nick Richards came to the team. It's felt like it's been one or the other, hence the variance in closing lineups that Bud's gone to. But they don't get this comeback without those two making the efforts that they did. I know Zubac had his way, but they had efforts past guarding him one-on-one that were conducive to the comeback and just generally bridging that gap for the team.
Yeah. Overall, something to look forward to with this. Richard in the chat says Espo Gillespie is a good player. She should take most of Tyus Jones' minutes. He hustles and get in the rebounds and defends. Need that. Hopefully Dunn can get some of Bobo and O'Neal's minutes as well. And look, I think you have to give Colin Gillespie credit. He is a very talented player. Now, he hasn't got a whole lot of opportunity on this stage, but he's a guy that has had multiple triple-doubles in the G League. He's a guy that at one point you actually thought was going to be one of the main point guards in your rotation when he signed this summer, before you got the Tyus Jones deal that everybody thought was a steal. So, you know, I give the kid credit, and he took advantage of the opportunity that he got here tonight and did it quite well there. So, you know, you gotta give them praise. I enjoyed a Suns game for the first time in a long while, where you can actually go, this wasn't a team. Sure, they had some injuries. Norm Powell not out there. Ben Simmons, I'm not gonna put too much stock in that, but they had most of their guys. This wasn't a Pelicans situation from the other night where it was we waved the white flag before the ball even gets tipped. This was a team that came out and you know, had pretty much a full deck. On the other side, we're going to talk more about this win. We're going to take a look inside the box, and we're going to tell you who our big, bright, shining star is. You might know, but there's a surprise as well. You know, we were talking about it, you know, at the beginning of the show, but it's never ordinary with our friends at Bet365. And tonight, and tonight's game, it's true on either end of the spectrum.
Come on.
It's never ordinary. At least tonight, it was interesting ordinary when it came to it. And look, Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide, and that many people know what they're talking about, right? Because they are one of the best in the business of taking care of you. They pioneered live in-game betting, and today you could have got some pretty good odds on the Suns about midway through that third quarter, and you could have cashed in real early. Or even if you had bet the Clippers to win, you would have won because of their early payout when they went up 20. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Win or lose, sign up, use that promo code PHNX365, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get that $150 in bonus bets. Again, that's win or lose. And don't forget the Slam Dunk Saturdays with Bet365. Make sure to sign up today using that promo code PHNX, deposit $10, place a bet for $5, and get that $150 in bonus bets. If your bet loses or wins, bonus bets can be used on spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and over, physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Text NEXT STEP to 53342 or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Look, I'm a little rusty on it. It's been a little while. You know what's not rusty? The cars that go those are NASCARs, if you're unaware, and they are in town this weekend. It's the NASCAR's return to Phoenix Raceway, March 7th through the 9th. It's the Shriners Children's 500 at Phoenix Raceway, and you gotta come out and see it to believe it. One of the best venues in the valley, and you're going to be able to watch NASCARs going 200 miles an hour around that 1 mile oval. 40 drivers will compete with Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace, and the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series champion Joey Logano. So get your tickets now at PhoenixRaceway.com. And you know what? I got to tell you a little bit about something we're doing here at PHNX. It's the PHNX Green Jacket Open Scramble. It's at 2 p.m. on April 11th at our friends at Dobson Ranch Golf Course. You're going to be able to go out there and have some of the best fun you've ever had on a golf course. We've done these multiple times, and it is unbelievable. You're going to get a limited edition PHNX gift pack when you go out there, and we are going to enjoy one heck of an afternoon at Dobson Ranch. So go to gophnx.com/events and sign up as an individual or a foursome to play today. So that is all the business we have for now, but let's get back into it. I want to look at what's in the box, right? Because there are certainly some interesting numbers. It's what's in the box, brought to you by our friends at Desert Financial Credit Union. They're voted #1 in Arizona by Forbes for credit unions.
What's in the box?
A dub, a surprising W.
Boo, 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 boo.
And it's a box score that would align with the things that we would expect to see from a Suns team if they were winning a game, especially against a team that's very viable, like the Clippers are. And I don't think we can start anywhere better than looking at the assists and the way that the ball was moving. And when they were playing well, it was humming around the perimeter. The Clippers were in rotation. They were able to generate those 3-point shots, which was one of the major keys of today's game. Those two go hand in hand, and naturally they do that. 31 assists on 41 made field goals. That's a formula for success. That's something that's shown to be successful for them consistently this season. When they've done it, they won. When they haven't, they haven't. So to see it is very refreshing, and to see them come back to it after they started the game playing that way, albeit in a roller coaster fashion, it just shows again that this team can win games when they play to their principles, and when they don't, it gets very ugly.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, that first and fourth quarter, the first quarter, the offense struggled at the beginning, and then the fourth quarter, obviously, you reach your potential. But those two middle quarters, I mean, they were rough. They lost that second quarter 41-19, which is why they had to win the fourth quarter 43-22 just to have a shot to win this one. But overall, in those moments, that's what's so frustrating, though, right?
Yep.
Is you see that ball moving. You see that offense make so much sense. You see them put in the effort defensively in that first and fourth quarter. And you go, that's what this team could be. That's what they should be. And you look in the box score and you go, okay, this is 11 turnovers. That works. You can do that. Like you mentioned, 31 assists. That's great. You have 5 steals in this game, and so you look at it and you go, this team can be significantly better than their sub 500 record. Where is it all the time, right?
Yeah. They have a proof of concept. They just have a blind eye to what is their proof of concept. And for this team, everybody, like, we talk about the ball movement, talk about that, but how they go about, like, it's not just aimlessly passing it around the perimeter.
It's not random.
It's not. And the thing is when they can find a way to get paint touches. Like, it feels like oftentimes they get so stuck in trying to play off of double teams. If someone can just find a way to get downhill, and oftentimes that someone has to come independent of Bradley Beal, because he is the one person that will put it on the deck, as we know. Outside of him, who else is going to generate paint touches? Devin Booker didn't have a great game today by any stretch, but he did get a lot of paint touches that led to those sequences we're talking about where the ball is humming around the perimeter. Somebody's getting a wide open 3-point opportunity or a layup. Kevin Durant, needless to say, did a whole lot of that today. Colin Gillespie did a whole lot of that in the fourth quarter as well. That's the template for this team. There's no, it's not complicated. It's not rocket science. You don't have to do surgery in any capacity. All you need to do is stick to the things that have shown to be successful for you and lean more into those things than whatever else has been going on, because that stuff has not been working for you.
Well, and you also bring up the 3-point shooting, right? We've talked about it all year. We're at a point where we beat that to death, essentially. But they shot 34 tonight. They hit 14 of them, where the Clippers only shot 30, hit 8, 26.7% for them, 41% for the Suns. Again, what you're talking about is those paint touches that opens up these outside shots. Exactly. And when the Suns can shoot at that volume, which is still not all that high compared to some of the top teams in the NBA, when you look at the Celtics of the world and everybody, but it's good enough, especially when you're connecting at the percentage we know that they can, and it opens everything up. That, I keep coming back to it, but that's the frustrating part, right? Because even in this game, I mean, you see it then you don't for 2 quarters, then you see it in spades in the fourth, and you're like, well, hell, just put together, 3.5 quarters like this, and you're sitting pretty in a lot of ways. And it's crazy to me. And you bring up Devin Booker not having a great game, and he really didn't. He only had 11 shots, and I can't remember the last time Devin Booker had 11 shots in a game. He did have 17 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds, but had 5 turnovers along the way too. A rough game, and that's why you need, the bench to, let me do some rough math here, 50 points for the bench tonight there, and you needed it significantly because Bradley Beal gets injured, plays 15 minutes, has 0 points. Devin Booker has a rough one with 17. The bench adds that 50. Kevin Durant has that 34, and you're cooking.
Yeah. Again, it's just not complicated. Like, I genuinely, this team has so much talent and so many pieces that complement one another on the offensive end of the floor. They should not be having the struggles that they see. And for that in and of itself just speaks to the lack of continuity, the lack of trust, the lack of an actual process that they're working towards. It feels like, just like in this game, it comes in sporadic waves, but it's never sustained.
Well, and this is probably too large of a question to answer on the fly here, but it feels like to me when your strategy is play random, you get random results, right? Where it's pretty clear what works, and why not, stop doubling down and actually build a system around the handful of things that have worked. Simplify everything. Take the random out because you don't have a team that's familiar enough with each other. Even though they've played 2/3 of a season, I still don't think they're familiar enough to play this random basketball that Coach Budenholzer talks about. Simplify it and go with what's working.
And that's the issue, because they're playing, oftentimes it feels like random without principles. There's no principles being upheld. We get to random after we get one reversal or the ball starts on one side of the court, it gets to the other, and now we got people cutting randomly. Now we got the ball spraying all over the court. They're just coming down court, watching each other, and then everything can be assumed from a defense. You can start to anticipate. And when the defense can get in a position where they're anticipating and they're guessing right possession after possession, now you're going up against the grain, and now that's where a lot of the turnovers start to come from. On the loud volume like we saw from Devin Booker tonight and their previous game against the Timberwolves, versus having some sort of principles established where we'll start playing random, but it's not until a reversal, it's not until someone gets a touch at the elbow, it's not until we get a paint touch. Like, there has to be a process to it. There has to be some trigger to it, and it feels like they're just often lost without that. And again, you can pull offense out of your backside at times, especially if you have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on your team. Yeah. But what's the sustainability to that, especially if you're going up against good to great teams?
Yeah. On the other side, we are going to talk about our big, bright, shining star, our X factors. And was there a moment in this game that may have changed the future for the Phoenix Suns? Talk about it after this. You know what'll change my future? A good slice of pizza. I'm not going to lie. I am a pizza man, and Spinato's Pizzeria is the place for myself and all Suns fans to get their pizza, and I am super excited because on March 28th, they're going to host a watch party that we're going to be involved in, and you can come out and you know what? You're going to have a chance to win free tickets, gift certificates, and more exciting prizes, and those gift certificates for that Spinato's Pizza is what you want. You're going to aim for that, and you're going to do it as we play a game of horse, but we don't call it that when we go to Spinato's. We call it pizza, P-I-Z-Z-A. I think I spelled that right? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Mm-hmm. That would suck to lose because I don't know how to spell, right? You can win free pizza for a year and Suns tickets to that April 9th game. So come on out to Spinato's for their watch party. Get all the info on their watch parties and their pizza basketball contest at SpinatosPizzeria.com. Spinato's, official pizza of PHNX and the Phoenix Suns. I'm super excited for that watch party. I got to tell you, my man, going out there. And you know how I'm going to get there? In a Sanderson Ford. I'm going to borrow one. I'm going to go get a nice one of them Mustang Mach-E's. I'm going to drive out to Spinatos because I want to ride in style, and our friends at Sanderson Ford will take care of you in celebration of Arizona being the 48th state in the union and Ford trucks being #1 in the sales for 48 straight years. Sanderson Ford is here to help you get in the vehicle of your dreams. They've got unbelievable deals on Ford Broncos, the Bronco Badlands, which I still think is the greatest name in cars right now. They've got F-150 STXs, XLT trucks, and you're going to save on all of them. Plus, they've got pre-owned vehicles. So if you're not in the market for a brand new vehicle, they got some pre-owned for you as well. Shop with no hassle or hassle, no pressure, and no nonsense. See why Sanderson Ford is America's most awarded Ford dealership for complete customer service and satisfaction. Don't miss your chance to head out to Sanderson Ford. I've been teasing it all show. All right. We buried the lead. It's time to give out our big, bright, shining star.
I am a big, bright, shining star.
The Big Bright Shining Star brought to you by Gila River Resorts and Casinos. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details. And of course, it's one Kevin, Wayne, Durant, and that is because KD went nuclear in the fourth quarter. He took charge of that game from word one in the fourth, and he was the engine that turned it around. So
that dude, I think one of the best measurements of greatness is when a player is at their peak and it starts a fire for other players, not just that specific person.
Yep.
And that goes on both ends of the court. It can't just be one side. All-time greats are able to find that switch, flip it, and let it kind of fester amongst the rest of his teammates. And we saw that tonight, even with KD being out there with role players, like we saw. Just a dice roll. Let's see if there's something there with Colin Gillespie on the court, with Mason Plumlee on the court, with Grayson Allen on the court, with Kevin Durant. Let's just roll the dice and see what comes out of it. Couple quick buckets from KD to start the fourth quarter. Timeout from the Clippers. They regroup. They come back out. Get a couple more stops, they start to compile those kills, multiple stops in a row like we speak to, and they keep playing off of their defense, getting into the offense. And Kevin Durant is out there getting bucket after bucket, after deflection, after block shot, after solid defense to a contest, and grabbing the rebound, and then transitioning to the other end. That's the word leadership gets thrown around so aimlessly, and it's used in such a derogatory way almost in a sense, but that was quite literally exactly what we saw from Kevin Durant. After he gets the buckets, after the timeouts from the Clippers, he's the person he's been spending a lot of time yelling at, Mason Plumlee, dapping him up, hitting him on the chest, saying, yeah, that's what we need, lighting the fire under Colin Gillespie to the point where he comes out of a timeout and he's guarding James Harden the entire length of the court. And I'm not going to say he was throwing him off his game, but he was at least making him work.
he was a pest.
But you don't get that portion of that without everything that came from it, starting from Kevin Durant. So, again, flowers given to the legendary all-time great that he is.
Hey, by the way, shout out to one of our Valley sickos in the chat, Brian. Brian, you're the best, my guy. And I gave Kevin Durant his flowers, but there's somebody else that I'm going to name a co-big, bright, shining star tonight. Noah, do we have that? Let's get that.
Bright, shining star.
It is Stan Van Gundy, because he treated tonight as if he was an insult comic doing a 2-hour long set at a comedy club, and all the jokes were coming at the Suns' expense.
Yeah.
Even when they started their comeback, he was talking about how the Phoenix Suns, something changed. They started trying. Like he was having his fun when it came to the Suns this evening. I'd like to think that they maybe caught wind of it and used that as a little motivation as well coming out of halftime. So I had to give him his props. Originally, if they had lost big, he was going to wind up being the big, bright, shining star for everything he was screaming at us on the television.
Shout out Stan. We appreciate Stan for all of what he does. He's never been one to bite his tongue.
No.
If you didn't see any of his mic ups when he was coaching, whether he was with the Magic or with the Pistons, he was very blunt, straightforward, and to the point. Straight shooter as much as that gets from a head coaching standpoint.
I mean, he was certainly he was speaking fact. I mean, 100%. It wasn't, but he was saying it where most people don't go there.
Yep.
So,
and he's speaking from a perspective where no one can rebut against him because he's been in those fires.
Mm-hmm.
He's been succumbed to that fire a couple of times actually. So if he knows if he's speaking on what he's saying, you better believe that's what's actually going on.
Tony saying he kept praising his bro. I know, but you know what? You do that when you actually have a sibling. You kind of defend them.
That and then when the other team isn't giving you much to talk about for the game that we're actually watching, you know?
Yeah.
That's an easy layup for him right there.
I agree. By the way, our like goal is 225. All right, that is the SPF that Colin Gillespie needs in his sunscreen when he goes outside in Phoenix. That's what we're aiming for. So smash that like button if you're in here and you had fun watching that comeback win. And you know, we've talked a lot about Colin Gillespie, so why don't we just name him our X Factor?
X gon' give it to you.
Yep, PHNX-Factor, Colin Gillespie, as he scored all his points in the fourth quarter tonight, wound up with an impressive 10 with 3 assists and 2 rebounds, no turnovers on the evening, shot 4 of 6 from the floor. So, you know, we've given him his flowers a lot tonight, but have to tip our cap once again. I hope he's earned some minutes within that rotation.
If Bud is sticking to what we've seen him do in terms of role players taking opportunity and really grabbing it by the horns in a way that's conducive for the team, he should be carving out a 15 to 20-minute role, at least in the next game or two, and seeing what he does with that for a potential role to expand from there.
Yep. Let's take a look at some super chats as we have a lot coming in tonight. Psycho Blue, our friend, as always, says, Dallas trades Luka. The Pistons are a high seed. The Timberwolves finally got rid of Glenn Taylor. But one constant remains. The Suns always own the Clippers in the season series. 4-0 this year against the Clippers. You know, if every game was against the Clippers, this would be a much different year.
I mean, by that record, that means they would not have lost a game yet this season. So, yeah. It's hard to disagree with that assessment at all.
I mean, that would be quite the different season that we'd be talking about. Mike from Mesa, how many games till Gillespie is back on the bench?
Well,
when do they play next?
They don't play till Friday.
So Friday, he's got till Friday.
That might be dependent on him though, because if he keeps playing well, he won't be sitting on the bench nearly as long as he had been earlier this season.
Oh, why? They'll send him back to Tempe to play for the Valley
Most
Suns?
likely, yeah.
I think it depends on Brad, right? Honestly, if Beal is out for multiple games, I think Gillespie's going to get every chance to take part in this. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he got a random start because we saw Bowl emerge and get that opportunity. If Beal's out,
yeah.
Maybe, but we'll see. A lot has to go into that. BComC clearly says big, bright, shiny star, hustle, fight, and resilience. I think that is definitely the 3 things that kept this team in it tonight. Arizona 88 says new lineup: Book, Katie, Collin, Rich, and O'Neal. It would not shock me if we see that at some point.
I wouldn't be surprised at this point. You got to roll with the things that are showing to work, and that was what showed to work tonight.
It's desperation time. Anything that works for any period of time, you ride with it till it doesn't work anymore. Victor White says, I said a few weeks ago that Katie is the corner too much. Katie is in the corner too much, just standing. He's 36, but he has to be the focal point early, just like the first 10 games were. I don't think there's any doubt that Kevin Durant has to be a large focal point of this offense if they're going to have success. And that's the only time we've seen them have success since he's come here is when he is one of 2 guys that are the main point of the offense.
Yeah, I don't disagree completely with that. But I will say at times with the way that their offense is set up, it's strategic that he is in the corner because if there's no help coming from that pocket, that opens up a window of space for something else to take place. oftentimes in the paint via the roller or someone driving to the basket, where if it wasn't KD there, whoever's guarding that person in the corner wouldn't mind helping off of there. But when he is there, they stay there, and that opens up things for the rest of the offense. So it's strategic, but at times I do agree that he's sitting around watching too much, where his gravity can be used in ways past just him standing in the corner.
Yeah, I feel like they get too comfortable with that at some point, some points, and they need to embrace it. Teddy in the chat said, "Send Beal to the gulag. Let little TJ McConnell cook." There's so many things wrong with that, and yet so many things accurate with it as well. Hoosman says, Collin versus Tyus brings the point guard the Suns need, driving in, keeping the dribble alive, and constantly moving. You see Book seeing something in him.
Yeah, like we talked about, the paint touches. Paint touch is king. Everybody looks at the end result and what they deem most important, the three-pointer, but the paint touch is what opens up and keeps that process going. So, yeah, that's, if anything else is an indicator of why Collin needs minutes, is that he can't go and get a paint touch for this team.
Matthew says, I give zero credit to Bud for this win. Zero. I agree.
I'm not mad at you.
Cedric says, this team does not play around the pick and roll as often as I like. They tend to be more successful when they feed the big on cuts to the basket, or even set screens across the free throw line for Booker or KD to get a wide open mid-range. Leave the three-point game, attack the basket, no ISO ball.
I mean, the ISO ball point, I think, is important because that's where a lot of the stagnation of their offense resides, and they lean heavily into that as much as any other team in the league. Some of that does come after they've not run any offense, and now it's 6 seconds on the clock, and it's a natural isolation for Booker and Durant. So, I mean, they hit on a lot of those points, but I think they do some things well. Maybe they could lean less into the pick and roll and just go and figure out ways to get paint touches. That's what a team like the Memphis Grizzlies, who's been on a lot of scrutiny because people don't think their offense will work in the playoffs, but when you have a spacing template and you go get paint touches, that's the best version of random play.
Yeah. Tony Bueno, our friend, give Gillespie a contract. He took command.
Yeah, he did.
I'm not arguing there either. Book Sunwalker, a win is a win. And yo, so happy to see Espo on the show. I missed you, bro. I need you more than ever during these dark times, man. You ever think maybe I took it off for mental health because of these dark times? You can only break a man so many times before he goes, you know what? I need a break.
The people need you.
Matthew back again. Tyus will certainly start after that Bud's way.
I mean, he started the second half for what it's worth.
Kev, where's Dunn? Where's Oso? Where's Monte? P.S. CG12 is him. Dunn got spot minutes. Oso's glued to that bench, and Monte, I think, must have insulted Coach Bud's wife at some point because he's MIA.
They're a hefty positive in Monte Morris's minutes this season, and that's even if you extrapolate his garbage time minutes.
I mean,
there's no reason that I've seen why Monte shouldn't be getting some sort of stake of claim to the minutes. I'm not saying he should be playing 25 minutes. I'm not even saying he should be playing 20. He should be playing, though, especially when you've been asking for things at the point guard position that just haven't been there.
Yeah, but why would we expect anything different from this bizarre rotation and everything that's happened? I've teased it, but something happened in the first quarter of this game that may have been embarrassing, but may have also lit a fire. That's next after the break. So what's this sound?
Is that a Waymo?
That's a Waymo because they're all electric and they're Jaguars, right? They are unbelievable. I love riding in a Waymo. It is a fantastic way to get around. It's an autonomous ride-hailing service that consists, like I said, of those all-electric Jaguar I-Paces. I personally, I drive a Jaguar, but it's nice to have somebody else or autonomously drive a Jaguar for me. So, I like to ride in style, and Waymo gets me there, and it is super easy because all I got to do is hit that Waymo One app, tell them where I am, it drives, it gets me, drops me off, and I'm done. And I'm not sharing that ride with anybody. Sorry. I'm by myself and enjoying my own music. So download the Waymo One app today and ride. You're going to love it just like I do. And that's just no lie there. And you know what the sound of this is? That's a slot machine when you're hitting that money. All right. And that's what happens at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. And I love being out there. I've spent a lot of time out there at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. The Wild Horse Pass location is my favorite. Look, it doesn't have to be yours, but personally, it's mine. I spent a lot of time out there. They've got unbelievable gaming floors. Their dining is exquisite. You want a slice of pizza? That's fantastic. They got that. You want a great steak? They got that as well. They got one of the best steakhouses out there. Prime Shula Steakhouse. Love it. Love being out there. So much to do when you are at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Their hotels rooms are unbelievable to stay in. I think I'm going to do a staycation there soon with the missus. You can too. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details. And don't miss us out there March 9th for our next watch along. And look, the Suns have a pulse, so maybe it'll be a fun basketball game too.
We'll see.
All right. I've teased the heck out of everybody about this, but Kevin Durant and Coach Mike Budenholzer had a bit of a run-in the first quarter. We have some video of it, courtesy of our friends over at 12 Sports. Cam Cox and the crew providing us with this. But Kevin Durant's coming off the court, kind of says something to Coach Bud. He winds up grabbing Kevin Durant's arm, and then the two kind of have it's not an altercation, it's an argument of sorts there, and Kevin Durant goes off to the bench. Then you'll see here in the clip in a second, the two kind of, make up a little bit as the timeout comes to an end here. So an interesting situation in a game that at that point was still in the Suns' favor, goes a little sideways, but then Kevin Durant takes over before. We have Coach Bud talking about exactly what this was. I want to listen to that, and then I want to get your thoughts, Stephen.
He and I were like old friends or whatever. We're always probably grabbing and talking to each other. So I thought he actually, his energy and his voice tonight was great. I think there was some kind of play, offensive play. He wanted something, I wanted something, and it's the beauty of basketball. So, but I think, as the game, really from that moment, his voice and, him talking, feedback, ideas, suggestions, was really, I think, a big part of the night.
What was your read on that whole situation?
I think there's no more clear indicators of head coach and best players not seeing eye to eye than these instances that we've seen over the last 4.5 to 5 days now. You got the stuff with Bud and KD in San Antonio coming out of the break, the very first game out of the All-Star break. And then look a couple of days after that, and then you see the stuff that's coming out news-wise with Bud and Devin Booker having these conversations, clearly not seeing eye to eye. And now you have this one in addition to all of that. That's 3 strikes over the last 3 weeks since we've gone out of the All-Star break. Every week has provided something else that's making that indication more and more clear.
Can we roll that video back of the incident I have, while I've been away, have taken on some lip reading, and Kevin Durant saying, I need somebody to read my palms. Tell me what's going on. Hey, bro, you can't grab my arm to read it. You got to grab my hand. That's the only way you can tell. And Bud's like, look, I know I screwed up, but I can tell you the future's good. Just wait till the fourth quarter. That's the whole thing. There was nothing big about it.
Yeah, it was a gut feeling.
That was some really bad lip reading on my part. But look, I think there's obviously a disconnect between these guys, especially because it's fairly out of character for Kevin Durant to be like that. We know Kevin Durant is extremely frustrated this season, and it's pretty obvious. And we heard him after that last loss and the Minnesota loss, and how he talked about it being an embarrassment. So you can hide it through platitudes. You can say, hey, this is what happens on every team, blah, blah, blah. There's a disconnect. And tonight, again, it boiled over in a small way and didn't impact Kevin Durant on the court. But at some point, there's going to be a moment where this comes to a head, where there is something that, one or both of them likely is no longer here. And I think it's going to wind up probably being both of them. But this stuff isn't the kind of stuff that happens. This isn't like Draymond Green and Steve Kerr getting a little heated. This is a perpetual thing that keeps happening.
Yeah, it's all emanating from a lack of trust. And that lack of trust is not coming from Bud and his players. It's very much vice versa. And it's compounding at this point. It's been going on for 2.5 months now. And then outside of a pocket that pre-existed that 2.5 months, it withstood even before then. So there's just a long leash that has been given, and it feels like change is it's literally inevitable, but it's like, how long is the inevitable going to be delayed as far as that goes, with the coaching part in particular?
Man, my guess is end of April. Depending on how long they extend things, whether they make the play-in or not, there will be some kind of decisive decision. I mean, that's repetitive, but there'll be a decision made pretty quickly, I have a feeling, because look, if you're Matt Ishbia, and I don't want to take this down a negative path. It was a good game, a lot of fun today, but this was one of the major talking points before the comeback. But if you look at it, Matt Ishbia is paying $400 million for a team that's barely in the play-in, right? He is dealing with an embarrassment in terms of the way that the coaches the head coach has connected with his players. There's, everything that happened at the deadline and things not happening, in the smoothest of ways. And then you put on top of it that the Cleveland Cavaliers are one of the best teams in basketball and have a shot at a title, his arch nemesis. That change is going to come, and big change is going to come, because he can't be happy with any of this. I mean, it's one thing to be willing to spend, but when your return on investment is nothing, essentially burn $400 million, and then you compound it with everything else, there will be a reckoning that comes, coaching staff, roster, all of it, unless they go on some magical run. And maybe tonight's the night we look back and we go, holy crap, that was when everything changed. And that was when the most unbelievable run for a Phoenix Suns team since 75, 76 happened. And this is a new version of the Cinderella Suns, who it was all over. And then all of a sudden, Colin Gillespie and Kevin Durant saved their souls. I doubt it, but I think that's the only way you're going to wind up getting a reprieve in this situation.
That's unfortunately what it looks like will help them get to whatever the next step is. And I'm hoping that next step comes while keeping Durant with the franchise. But I feel like the way in which they go about making that next decision and who all is involved from an external standpoint is largely going to decide, what that ultimate decision is.
All right. I'm going to say this to you. And you're a mild-mannered individual. Right? like we feel Kevin Durant is. If I ever grab your arm like Mike Budenholzer grabbed Kevin Durant's, I expect you to kick my ass. All right? Because that is very disrespectful from a boss to an employee, which is essentially that relationship. And I know it's vastly different because of the amount of money and all that, but on a human level, that was disrespectful. So just so you know, kick my ass.
I feel like you know me well enough to know that would get a reaction that you've never seen out of me before.
I would expect so, and it should. Noah, you can take a swing at me too if I ever do that. Let's reminder: 225 is that like goal. So if you haven't hit it, please do so. And so we're waiting for Gerald, who will be here shortly from the Footprint Center, where he is getting all the inside insight. And I'm guessing it's a little lighter there in the locker room than it has been recently for Gerald. So looking forward to what he has to say. But I saw something really cool on the internet earlier today. And I checked in because I thought at first maybe this is one of those fake things that they show. But the NBA apparently is experimenting with some new courts. Noah, do we have that footage that we can take a look at here? So these are LED courts that they're working on, and they have essentially an iPad at the stanchion, and they can literally change with a click of a button in a matter of seconds the entire look and feel of the court. They can go they just went from a Raptors court to an Orlando Magic court, and I was told by a source that this is in fact real. The NBA, in fact, is testing these. And is actually doing this in Florida and wanting NBA teams to actually come out here and check it out and test it out. And apparently you can even write on the court if you're in a coaching situation, like a practice or whatever, to diagram the actual play on the court. Now, I think that would be very ineffective during an actual game to show your opponent what's going on. But it's interesting how the technology is shifting, and there's some belief that this court may be in play for in-season tournament and other things next year. We've seen some experimentation on All-Star Saturday night, but these kind of things are really cool to me. I think that these little innovations that the NBA can have not only will save teams money in the long run and having to have multiple courts for multiple things, but also make it a little bit more fun for fans.
You know, I might be outdating myself or dating myself, however that phrase goes with this response, but with so much technology, it feels like this is gonna replace people working. And that's the part for me. Because the events,
staining of the court and everything.
Staff,
well, I think you're still going to have to remove the court and whatnot for events. I think where you might have people, obviously you're going to not have the people staining the courts doing those things like they would. But
so if there's a plan for those, like that group of players, group of employees to still have a role, whether it's directly involved with the new court or if there's some other, way they go about employing them, then I'm all for it because I think the technology is dope. It's very much a sign of the times. And I think that would be very interactive because naturally that lends itself to entertainment things that come with the in-arena experience and things like that. But I don't know. That's kind of where my mind goes when we talk about technology taking place of things that were already.
I'm all for cool stuff like that. But two thoughts came to mind. You know how big of a pain in the butt it is when a shot clock malfunctions? What if your court malfunctions? Then you have no 3-point line. You don't know where the free throw line is. Yeah. That becomes problematic. You got to pull out
the tape.
And imagine if your court got hacked and somebody from an opposing team or opposing fan base has an iPad that they now can draw on your court. Imagine what we would see on some of these courts.
That's a mess.
I just wanted to share that. I found it interesting, and who knows the next time I'll be on the program. So I wanted to share that. We did just get in video of KD talking about the incident with Bud. Why don't we take a listen to that?
Yeah, that's what usually happens when you don't know the dynamics of a relationship. You know, you catch something on TV, you get a quote, and now you pushing that narrative as if me and Bud don't do it all the time. We competitive as two individuals who want to see things done the right way. And sometimes my way ain't the way that Bud want to do it, and vice versa. And he allows me as a player on the team, a veteran on the team, to voice my opinion. If we both didn't care, we would never have stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So, and I'm glad that the win is going to sweep all of that stupid stuff under the rug, because people couldn't wait. Even some people in Phoenix in here couldn't wait to run with that, you know, and say, oh, this is the reason why the team ain't playing well, because of that specific thing. But come on, man. That shows that me and Bud really care about trying to right this ship and trying to win basketball games. So he understands where I'm coming from. I understand exactly where he's coming from. It's just the people on the outside don't know the dynamics of the relationship. So, you know, in order for them to get some attention, they're going to run with stuff like that.
Which leads me to following up. The conversations not only continue, but I just noticed that you were voicing your opinion, he was voicing his throughout the rest of the game. And I know that it's something that...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I wish they cut to that and slow-mo that when me and him come to a solution together and we smiling on the bench and we tapping each other on the chest and slapping hands hard. I wish they would post that on Instagram and Twitter and say, wow, this is leadership right here. But when we do that other that gets attention. That's just the nature of the world we in. That's the nature of the content and the NBA in general. So it's frustrating when you see like that and you see the reaction to it, but you know, I know deep down what it is between Bud and I, and he knows it too. And this ain't the first time we done got into it. Not even got into it. We had a quick disagreement and moved right on right after the next play. And so it's not gonna be the last either. And Bud knows that, and he respects how much I care and I respect how much he cares.
Look, it's clear that narrative bothers Katie, rightfully so. I mean, because yeah, we don't know the relationship, but you can have a dysfunctional relationship with somebody that you don't necessarily have the biggest problem with. You know, I still question, what exactly is going on and why we've seen it multiple times now. Like, and maybe it's not a huge deal, but that it still implies to me frustration in general, right?
Mhm.
And again, I don't have any problem with Kevin Durant's leadership. In fact, I don't mind a player getting to that point where there's frustration when it's going poorly on the court, and that's the guy that's calling the shots on it.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I refuse to believe everything's hunky dory, great, but I also can understand why he would feel that the stuff gets blown out of proportion, because yeah, in a split second, it's around the world right now.
Mhm.
And we all have moments that maybe we're not the proudest of that happen at work that you wouldn't want broadcast to the world.
Yeah, I don't think it's outlandish to say that KD understands the way that social media works as well as any other player in the league right now. And I also agree with him on the side of the interactions, albeit negative to the eye, are positive to trying to find some semblance of a corner to turn, because shows that people care. It shows that people haven't completely let go of the rope. And you can critique what that looks like, but adversity always shows that. And anytime they've been met with adversity, it's always come with someone showing that they're not okay with the situation that they're in. And because of that is why, again, like I said in the opening to a pregame show, I can't count a team out with him and Devin Booker at the top, just because of the reaction and how they're just not okay with the space that they're in. They haven't just thrown their shoulders up and say, it's whatever, game over.
Yeah, and I've said this throughout a lot of this. It's not a leadership thing for me ever, like with this team, but KD in particular. KD leads. It's just a different way, and that is part of it. Is sometimes two guys that are viewed as leaders on a team aren't going to see eye to eye always, and conflict isn't a bad thing. When conflict becomes confrontational or problematic in terms of it turns too angry, it turns personal, whatever the case may be.
Yep.
That's when it's a problem. But conflict actually leads to resolution in a lot of ways, and sometimes palatable change that needs to happen.
Yep.
And I think too often we forget that. People forget that and just assume that friction is just wrong, and it's not. It's a necessary part of a process. You can't always be everything's great, everything's wonderful, because then the serious problems don't get addressed, and you can't fly off the handle constantly. But having conflict isn't necessarily wrong, because they both may have been right in what they saw in that play, and by having that friction, they can talk it through and find a common ground on it as well. So that's why when you see those situations, overplaying it is sometimes a misunderstanding of just how that works. And that's in life in general, but especially when you get people in a high stakes situation with a lot of pressure and a clock ticking down. That's bound to happen.
And the expectations on top of all of that as well. That's 100% true. And I feel like, and I'm not trying to speak as an elitist or trying to speak as if I'm holier than thou in any capacity, but sometimes with some of the narratives that are thrown around the discourse, it feels like people are speaking on what they're seeing from a place where they haven't been on teams and in adversity-filled situations with a team, to where the walls for comfort zones have to be stripped all the way down, and you have to be brutally honest and transparent. And without getting to those moments, you're just delaying what could be you turning the corner, and it's going to eventually start working against you. So again, these confrontational scenarios are not always bad.
Well, I mean, any relationship that you have, there's bound to be friction. A marriage, a friendship, co-workers, when you're trying to strive for a common goal, but you don't see necessarily eye to eye on how to get there. And like I said, as long as you don't cross those lines, then I think there's value to it. And I feel like that's kind of what Katie was trying to get to as well. Don't make the assumption based on the visual. I still wouldn't grab somebody's arm like that. I still think that's a weird choice, but I understand the overarching feeling there. Kevin Durant also talked about Colin Gillespie's huge fourth quarter and how he helped them win. Let's hear that.
I always love how Collin is poised and he's a dog. He cares. You know, he was one of the loudest in the locker room about the last game, and he didn't contribute a minute to that disaster. And he came out and was pissed off after the game last game. So you could tell when he got another opportunity, he was going to make the most of it and go out there and play his game. And every time he steps on the floor, he's been doing that. Even in the G, you know, in the G, he's just dominant. But up here, he comes in here and makes, leaves a mark and plays extremely hard. I love playing with him, So hopefully he can build on this and get more consistent minutes after this, and help us out a little bit. And coach made a great adjustment throwing him in there, And to start the fourth quarter, coach was just perfect, to be honest. Every adjustment he made was incredible. He was catalyst for all of it.
Again, Kevin Durant, leadership. That's part of it. Is he just gave you a very thoughtful answer about Colin Gillespie and talked about what he's done in the G League. And you know how he knows? Because he was out at G League game right before the All-Star break when he was playing in it. I mean, he's out there and he supported a lot of his teammates, including Colin Gillespie. So you got to appreciate his attention to detail with that and everything that Colin was able to do.
Yep. That's probably one of my favorite things about Kevin Durant. And it's the fact that he's always around basketball.
Yeah.
Going to high school games in a random away city that he's at over the course of a road trip with his team, naturally popping up at AAU games over the course of the summer. That's
shooting hoops while he's at it in a club.
Exactly. That in and of itself is a form of leadership, because he's paying the game forward by giving that attention to players that he knows is going to raise the level of play, also making himself when to have conversations with those guys too.
Yeah, definitely. Noah, do we have that Colin Gillespie video? Let's take a listen to Colin Gillespie on his big night.
Compete. Yeah, we were down. I don't know what we started down, but we were down. So just try to inject some energy, some life, playing hard, competing, talking to the guys, getting stops, being physical, being aggressive. So just trying to do all the little things to just change the game in whatever way I could.
Yeah, he always gets the players on the court with him to react to the energy, the activity that he's playing with, steering the wheel on offense to start possessions, but also steering that same wheel defensively with the activity that he plays with. So, again, big salute to Collin for tonight's game.
Oh, it's that time. It's time for From the Home Court, presented by the Carol Royce team. Your home sold, guaranteed. Arizona's fan favorite real estate team, where Carol will guarantee to sell your home for 100% of market value, or she will pay you the difference. Learn more at carolroyce.com. And now it's time for Gerald.
In the darkness, beyond the light, there shall only be one. Welcome to
Hey, Gerald.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. I assume much better vibes out there tonight?
A lot better, at least thanks to what happened in that fourth quarter, because it was looking very much like the worst vibes of the season. Obviously, there was that clip of Mike Budenholzer and KD in the first quarter that blew up. They were down 19 heading into the fourth. They trailed by as many as 23. And yet, for the second time this season, they came back from down 20-plus points against this Clippers team and got a much-needed win. So the bad vibes were kept at bay for at least one night or one quarter, if you want to call it that.
Gerald, how would you react if I grabbed your arm like Coach Bud grabbed KD's?
I'd probably yank it free and we'd probably have some words, but then we would continue to communicate because people don't know the dynamics of our relationship, Espo, and I think that's important for people to know.
I agree, and it's tough when this social media world just takes those clips and runs with them right away, isn't it?
Absolutely. I take it you're not buying KD's response on that exchange then?
No, I am. Less Bud's response. I think Kevin Durant's response is makes sense, and we were talking about it. Tensions happen. Friction isn't necessarily a bad thing. I just think Mike Budenholzer took one foot over that line in grabbing a guy, but other than that, it is what it is.
Yeah, I thought it was a bad look. It was concerning, and if they had lost this game by 20, 30 points, that would be what we're all talking about. I think Kevin Durant said it himself. He's glad that they were able to get the win to kind of sweep some of it under the rug. But I do think he and Book over the last couple of days have both emphasized that, like, just because you see us barking at a coach or barking at a teammate, it doesn't mean that, things are terrible and we hate each other and it's the end of the world. It means that we still care and that we're trying to figure this out because we are all frustrated with the way that we felt. So I know at times over these last few weeks, it's definitely felt like this team is apathetic or their effort isn't good enough. But they do still care, even if it doesn't show up in their quality of play.
Gerald, being in the arena, can you just describe what the experience was today? Because we have our assessments from looking at it through the TV screen, but being there in person, what was it like for you today?
That was about as up and down as I can remember a game being, with the highs and lows. And I think it's fair, like they were down 20 to the Clippers. They looked absolutely lifeless. Stan Van Gundy's ripping them a new one on national television. It was an embarrassing effort for 3 quarters there. And then Kevin Durant said that he was looking around and he saw how dead it was. And he said, we got to make some plays. We got to get this crowd back into it. He was saying, normally you're supposed to be professional and not engage with the crowd and not look to the crowd and focus on the game plan, all this other stuff that they tell us to do. But I didn't like putting a bad basketball product on the court. And I think the boos got to him as well, because he also mentioned, this was the clip that I didn't have a chance to send in, but He was saying, I don't understand what booing does for a team. I'd rather you get up and leave because that's going to embarrass us more or make us feel it more. I don't quite agree with KD on that front, but I think for him, that was kind of an impetus for him to do what he did to start that fourth quarter. He scored their first 8 points. He was, gesturing to the crowd. He told us at the podium, he said, my message to them was WTF. I'll sum it up what he said because I can't say the word on postgame. But he was saying, like, get up. Like, we need your energy. We need you to stay with us and stay involved. And I think there's an argument to be made that you have to play well enough to warrant that type of energy throughout a game. And they were playing terrible. But there is something to the effect of, like, this energy in the fourth quarter that the fans brought when the team actually played well. I don't remember it being that loud in quite a while here, and it was kind of a nice reminder of just how much fun Suns basketball can be when they're actually playing to that level, when the crowd's engaged. They just are a natural hand and glove fit when both those things happen.
Hold on. So he said they shouldn't boo, but that motivated him to do what he did, and then gave them "Are you not entertained?"
So he didn't say that it motivated him per se, but he was saying that, like, looking around, he saw how dead it was, and he was at that point. He was like, I need to do something. We need to put something better on the court and turn this around. And that's what happened. And he kind of downplayed whether this could be a turning point of a season. He was saying, we're not in a position where we can take a step back and look at it that way. We have to go one game, one possession at a time. But I think everybody in the room felt how much that was needed tonight.
KD was coached by one Steve Nash, and then he was saved by the new Steve Nash tonight. We heard the clip from KD, but what was kind of the general feel when it came to Collin's big fourth quarter there, and another guy who hadn't been in the rotation stepping up to help them?
Yeah, I think Collin was huge tonight. Like, KD was the catalyst that changed that game, but Collin just coming in and giving effort and competing was like a breath of fresh air. And it's kind of sad that we have to say that because that should be the standard for anyone who checks in for a team at this position in the season. But he was great tonight. Like, obviously he knocked down that big three. When he was asked about it, he was like, yeah, I was wide open and I work on it a lot. So why not? I'm going to take that shot and knock it down with confidence. So that was a cool moment for him. Another cool moment, taking James Harden off the dribble and getting that high arcing layup over Ivica Zubac. Like, he was big for them down the stretch in terms of scoring 10 points off the bench, but also just the energy. Coach Bud said it started with his defense, just knowing the game plan, being locked in and solid on that side of the ball. And then also the extra effort, the second or the offensive rebounds that he was preventing by crashing the glass and tipping the ball to teammates and that type of thing. Even if he didn't get the actual rebound in the stat sheet, like, he really came out there and made an impact on both ends. And you heard it from KD. He said, I hope that he's able to earn more minutes. And he praised Coach Bud after the game, saying that he was kind of the catalyst for turning things around, because the buttons that he pressed in terms of the adjustments and the rotations in that fourth quarter, this is the first time we've said this in quite a while, but they were really good tonight.
Any update on Bradley Beal's status? Obviously didn't come out for the second half. What is it looking like for him?
No update on his status as of yet. Obviously didn't play the second half. I think we saw him on the bench with a towel over his head. He seemed pretty down about it. Obviously, this has been yet another year from hell for him and for the fans that want to see him on the court. But it honestly kind of worked out for the best for the Suns tonight, because he was, I think, 0 for 4 at halftime. He really was not playing well on either side of the ball. And that kind of is what opened up the minutes for Colin Gillespie for him to make the most of his opportunity. So hopefully there's a silver lining in this, that, Collin proved himself tonight and maybe gets a crack at some minutes next game as well.
All right. If Brad's out on Friday, you're Coach Bud. Do you start Colin Gillespie? Do you just roll with hot hands here?
Might as well try, man. You're at that point in the season. Like, I know it's probably going to be Tyus. We know that that's probably what's going to happen. He's not going to be that bold, but you're at a point in the season where you cannot afford to lose. And this guy actually came in, gave you some energy, competed and fought on both ends of the floor in the way that this team has been talking about doing for weeks, but hasn't actually done. So yeah, he's undersized, but if you're going to play an undersized point guard, it might as well be the guy that's actually given you something over the last week.
He is Gerald Bourguet. You can follow him at Gerald Bourguet on X. And you can also read his unbelievable work. And I don't say that lightly. In fact, I don't usually give compliments. So you can read his unbelievable work over at gophnx.com. His 2-part series on what actually has gone wrong since, basically since Ishbia has taken over, with an inside look from within the building. It is fantastic. If you haven't read it, you're just wasting time. Go over there right now, become a diehard, and read that work. Gerald, always fantastic to catch up with you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Have a good night.
He is Gerald Bourguet, and I think we've come to the end. We have pushed well into a Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday, right? We started on a Tuesday. It's now Wednesday morning. So any final thoughts before we get out of here about tonight's game?
Friday is going to be a very interesting test with the Denver Nuggets.
In Denver.
And, I mean, if you're leaning into the bit, why not start Bull and Colin Gillespie for the revenge factor within that game?
It.
But in all seriousness, this game doesn't even matter if you can't start to show your turning corners in process, and those process corners being turned resulting in wins.
Well, and you need to see it for more than one quarter. And that's been the message all year. It's great. Okay, you beat a team that you've beaten 3 other times, and you came back to do it.
Yep.
And that was your 8th 10-point comeback or more. But I believe the stat was the Clippers have given up 10-point or more leads this year as well. So now you got to go in, play in Denver, and prove that you can actually pull it off against a team that still has championship aspirations while you're just trying to fight your way into the play-in. Let's take a look at our final super chats of the night. Matthew, doubling down on the beauty of basketball, Pud. All right. Raymond with the $9.99 super chat. Thank you very much. This was a big game. If they lost this game, I think it would have they would have given up on them. But new hope, I believe, again, P.S. Of course, they're not getting along. They've been losing. That is fair. Mike from Mesa, awesome, Espo. Heard the phrase hunky-dory. Did I say hunky-dory?
I didn't say it.
Maybe
Gerald said it.
That's even far too white for me. Hunky-dory. All right. And then Mike from Mesa. Bud, the writing's on the wall. I can't even read the second word there. But, yeah, I think the writing is on the wall. It is not hunky-dory for Bud.
Not at all. Not
you want to
even a
try
little
it
bit.
on? You want to try the hunky-dory on?
I'm cool.
All right.
I ain't got that in.
I don't got that energy either. I don't know who said it. I don't know if that was implying Bud's giving off that hunky-dory energy. But I'll tell you this. I got a slight reprieve by that 4th quarter, but I am not feeling that much better about this team as a whole. Go over and check out my latest edition of Southwest Bias. I have a 5-minute monologue on why I feel like this team still may be the villain in town, but there may be hope. Plus, I interview Coach Dar, used to be the mental strength coach for the Suns and the Coyotes, and she gives some fantastic advice as how us as fans can make it through this and what the athletes themselves have to do to keep in the right mind frame. And I unveil the Kaminsky curse. And you're going to want to find out what that is. So I think it's the key to everything going on. So check that out. Southwest Bias on the PHNX Sports YouTube page. Noah behind the Mac, thank you, sir, for all of your great work today and for editing the curse words out of the post-game press conferences. We appreciate you. Steven, I appreciate you as always. Great to be back in the seat with you. You can follow Steven at StevenPG3, right?
Got it.
I got it. I've remembered. You can follow the show at PHNX_Suns. You can follow me at Espo. And remember, maybe this is the start of something. Ahoy, hoy.
We all silly like the mayor.